Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Irene, and for those of you guys who are new to this channel or maybe are just clicking on this video, I'm going to be a junior at UCSB next year. I've been watching a lot of these videos going around on YouTube, so I thought I'd just sit down and film my own. As you can probably guess from the title of the video, today I'm going to be sharing with you guys 10 things that I learned during my sophomore year at UCSB. So just a little bit of background info about me. I am a junior, like I mentioned, and I am a comm major. I'm also minoring in professional writing, and I'm going to be doing the multimedia communication track, and I'm also going to be minoring in art and technology. So my number one tip is to put yourself out there. I know it sounds like one of those really trite or cliche things that everyone tells you to do. I feel like it's genuinely one of the pieces of advice that has been most helpful to me in my own time at college. I've met a lot of my best friends, and I just feel like I've been able to have so many opportunities just because I kind of live by that mindset of putting myself out there and really taking college as an opportunity to step out of my comfort zone and do things that maybe I don't feel very comfortable doing, or things that I haven't done before, but just being willing to put myself out there, to introduce myself to new people. I feel like especially as an introvert, or I think I'm an ambivert, I'm not really sure. I feel like I can be extroverted around certain people and in certain situations, but I also really enjoy my alone time and just not I'm not one of those people where I can be out socializing all day. I get super tired and my energy will just crash about halfway through. But anyways, as someone who isn't necessarily the most extroverted person, I will be the first person to say that it is hard to put yourself out there, but I think that it's so valuable, especially in college. My second tip is to take initiative. This is something that kind of goes along with putting yourself out there, but instead of doing so in a social context, it's more about really taking initiative as a student. So at least for me, it's really important for me to go to office hours and talk to my professors and to just build that connection and also at the same time get the help that I need. To be honest, I'm not really someone that likes to ask for help. I would much rather figure things out on my own. If I don't really understand something, I'll read the textbook again, or especially for me as well, I am not really someone who likes to ask questions or speak up in a group context, so I usually don't really talk in lectures or in sections. So office hours is kind of my chance to get the help that I need, because when it's one-on-one office hours, it feels more like I'm having an actual conversation with the professor or the TA instead of being in the classroom. And I don't know, I just get really nervous. I would just say to take initiative. If you need help, go talk to your professors, go to office hours. Make sure that if you need help, you're getting the help that you need. I'm gonna be honest and say that taking initiative is not something that I always do, but it's definitely something that I'm always working to improve. I know that especially in terms of office hours and asking for help, it's something that I'm more inclined to do, or that I do more often with my major classes and the classes that I'm really interested in. But I've also noticed throughout the years that the classes where I'm really taking initiative as a student and I'm really getting involved in and participating in, those are the classes that I tend to get the most out of. Those are the ones where I feel like I've really learned concepts, and for comm especially, a lot of the concepts from pre-comm actually come back in upperdiv classes. So it was really important for me to make sure that I knew the material that was being covered in each of my 4 prereq classes, and especially when I got to upperdiv, I felt like a lot of the material really came back, and because I knew what was going on in my pre-comm classes, my comm classes were a lot easier. If I hadn't gone to office hours, I think that I would have struggled a lot more last quarter. So I think definitely taking initiative is something that's really good to do in college, and something that I honestly probably didn't really learn till last year. The third thing that I learned in college is that there is a difference between studying hard and studying smart. So at least for me, I think that studying hard is just putting a lot of time into it, really memorizing each concept. And while I think that it definitely works for some situations, some classes, some people, I feel like it's not necessarily the best use of time, at least for me personally. I know that this is something that I really relied on a lot in high school, especially with a lot of my AP classes like APUSH, AP Gov, AP Psych, where you just had to really know a lot of concepts and dates and people's names really specifically in and out, and that's what you were going to be tested on. But I think that the way that people test in college is a lot different. It's not about knowing this person created this theory in this year. It's more about, what does this theory mean? What are the implications for research? And I know at least for comm, I mean, I feel like that's all I can really speak to is my experience as a comm major. But I know at least for comm, it's not about the nitty-gritty details. Those are important too. And I think it's good for background information, knowing in general like which theories came first, which ones are more recent, how they all work together. So because you don't really need to know as much of the nitty-gritty details, when you're studying, that's something that you can kind of use as well. This past year, what I've started doing is focusing more on not memorization and not purely running through practice problems and like reading over the study guide that I've made, but kind of about like organizing my information. So how I organize the information in the study guide and how I'm thinking about it as I'm studying. Something else that's also really important to think about is reading the textbook. I know in college a lot of people don't buy the textbook because they think it's not going to be tested, and as someone who's bought the textbook every quarter for the past 6 quarters, I would say that in some cases it's true. So part of studying smart is just realizing, is this a professor, is this a class that is actually going to test me on what's in the textbook? And for most of my classes, I found that the textbook isn't so much your main source of information, but it's kind of supplementary. Definitely at first, I was in the habit of literally reading every single page of the textbook and making sure I knew every little thing that was covered in it, and it was really, really tedious. And I would always dread when I was assigned reading homework, because who wants to read 30 pages in depth? And then I realized honestly after about like freshman year, after 3 quarters of that my study strategy wasn't working. I realized that making sure that I knew the textbook front to back wasn't something that was actually helping me. It was just taking a lot of time. But in the general sense of comparing studying smart and studying hard, I think that studying hard would just be reading the textbook, but studying smart is figuring out when it's okay to skim and figuring out what the professor or the class wants you to get from the assigned reading. And something that I've actually noticed is that for me, what a lot of comm professors test on is mostly the course material, and then it's how the textbook integrates with the course material. So as part of like that kind of informational organizing thing, like when I'm sitting down and I'm studying, I kind of try to figure out these are a couple key concepts from each chapter as they were covered in the lecture, and then I'll read the textbook and think, oh, so the textbook is going more in depth on this one aspect of this concept, and then maybe it's adding like another concept, or it's giving you a real life application of it. So I think that has been something that I've really learned how to do a lot more this past year, and it's definitely saved me a lot of time in studying. Number 4 is to do things because you enjoy doing them, not because you think they're gonna look good on your resume. Going into college, I carried over a lot of my expectations and how I would make decisions from high school. In high school, there's a lot of pressure to do extracurriculars, play sports, join clubs, and to volunteer and to get all these awards and to do all these things because they're going to look good on your college application, and because people tell you if you do X, Y, and Z, you're going to get into a good college. And that kind of instruction manual way of thinking is how I went into college. Growing up, that's how I've been told that things are. If you do well in high school, you're going to go to a good college, and then when you get to college, if you do well in college, you're going to get a good job after graduation. People were really emphasizing you have 4 years to build your resume and make yourself a good candidate for getting a job and getting internships. I really had to learn that I shouldn't be doing everything because it's going to look good on my resume. I need to do some things that I actually enjoy doing, and to pick things that I enjoy doing that maybe will also look good on my resume, or that will also give me the experience that I need. This year in particular, I really learned how to take a step back and think, am I doing this because I want to or because I feel like I should? It probably sounds like it's really easy for me to say this now, but it was something that I honestly struggled so much with in the past 2 years, especially this past year, and it's something that I'm definitely still working on and that I'm definitely still learning to figure out in my own life. And number 5 is to manage your expectations. I think that this is honestly something that I didn't really learn until this past year, and it's not so much that I feel like I've learned it, but that it's something that I'm recognizing and that I'm working to improve in my life. At least going into college, I had these expectations of what it meant to be a good student and what it meant to have a perfect college experience. As a perfectionist growing up, I've had really high expectations of myself, and it's really, really hard to be a perfectionist and to be happy with yourself in college, because you can't always give 110% of yourself to everything, and that's something that I realized very quickly. I felt like when I got to college, it's just gonna be 4 more years of the same thing. I'm just gonna study really hard, I'm gonna get a 4.0, I'm gonna do all these things, and I'm gonna have a perfect college experience and the perfect college life. Having all these high expectations was actually really, really harmful to me because I felt like it started to make me question my self-worth. If I wasn't getting a 4.0, was I still a good student? And a lot of my self-worth became wrapped up in the realization of my expectations, especially academically. I think that it's something that I can recognize a lot more, especially because it's summer, I'm not in school, and I'm not really thinking about it as much. I think it's something that it's a lot easier for me right now to take a step back and think my grades aren't all that important. It's about managing my expectations so that even if I'm not getting a 4.0, if I'm not getting straight A's, it's okay, and to set more realistic expectations for myself so that I'm not constantly disappointed and so my self-worth isn't wrapped up in the grades and the GPA that I am or am not getting. In college, it's really important to set realistic expectations so that you don't feel overwhelmed and so that you don't feel like you're failing or you're not doing well just because of one test or even one class. Even as I'm saying this now, it's definitely something that I'm not perfect at or even good at, to be honest, but I think that just me being able to realize that over the past 2 years is something that I think is a really good step forward for me and that hopefully will continue on into the next 2 years of my college experience. Number 6 is to prioritize the things that are important to you. And I know I've kind of touched on this earlier in this video, but I think it's really important just to sit down and to realize like what your priorities are. What I've realized recently is that in college, I really care about experiences, doing fun things with friends, going to the beach, just doing things because I want to do them. And that's something that I've been working really hard to prioritize more. And honestly, I feel like in 10 years, no one is going to care about the grades that you got in this class or that you maybe failed this one test. But what you're gonna remember is the fun times that you had with friends and all the cool experiences that you had in college. Number 7 is time management. Everyone says this, but honestly, time management is so important in college. Don't put things off till the last minute. Even though no one's holding you accountable and no one is checking to see that you've done your homework or done your reading, it's still important to get it done. Maybe you aren't getting it done on the exact day that it needs to be due. I kind of try to write everything down that is supposed to be done for the week and to get it done over the course of the week, or if I'm not done by Friday, I'll spend some of my time on the weekend doing it as well. But generally, what I've tried to do this past year is do all my homework in the week. I usually have classes on Mondays and Wednesdays or classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so I'll spend the days I don't have class doing homework so that I can have Saturday and Sunday free to hang out with my friends. And that's something that ties back to the idea of prioritizing your time. I feel like time management is something that honestly everyone struggles with, and at least what I've learned is that writing my essays last minute or cramming for a test the night before, it doesn't work for me because I'm so stressed and all I can think about is all the things that I should have been doing all quarter. Number 8, Google Calendar is your best friend. If you don't have Google Calendar, please give it a try and it will be your best friend. I literally put everything that I do in my Google Calendar. I just like to have everything in there to keep it organized so that every morning I can look at it and see what I have to do that day. I like to put all my tasks into Google Calendar. Every quarter what I do is I'll put all my classes in and all my office hours and sections and stuff like that, but then every day or the night before, I'll sit down and think about what I want to do that day. I think it's really easy because then you know what's going on and it's a lot easier for me. I feel like especially because in college, like it's really easy to get overwhelmed with all the things that you have to do. And I think another thing that's really important for me, at least when using Google Calendar, is if you set out 2 hours to do something and you don't finish, say you're supposed to be brainstorming for your paper, but you're not really done yet in 2 hours and there's still more that you can do, don't just keep working on it. Stop and set it aside and do it another day. I think it's really important to really stick to the time that you've given yourself, especially because what I do is if I have a big paper, I'll break it up into small chunks, brainstorming like I mentioned, and then maybe finding sources and then getting an outline and then doing the rough draft. So because I've split it up over several days, if you don't finish one day's task, it's okay to roll it over into the next days, especially because if you just keep working on it, it starts to take over your day and it puts you off track. If there were 5 things that you're supposed to do and you're stuck on the first one and you can't finish, then the other 4 tasks aren't getting done as well. So I think it's a lot better if you've spent 2 hours brainstorming and you're just not getting it, put it aside and get the other 4 tasks done. And honestly, since I've started using Google Calendar, I've noticed that I've become a lot more productive and that I'm using my time a lot more efficiently. And number 9 is to make your schedule work for you. I think especially in college, because there's so many things going on in your day, it's really important to figure out what works for you and how you're the most productive. And obviously this is something that is completely different and personal for everybody. For me, this means having no early morning classes and having class twice a week and then having 5 days off. But for other people, like I know people where they love having morning classes. They like to be done every day at noon, and that's what works for them. I know for me, I'm the most productive in the afternoons and the evenings. I like to, I guess, like have a slower start to my morning. It's just really important to think about when you're more likely to get your work done, like when you do the best work, and to find time in your schedule to make that happen. And number 10, and probably one of the most important things that I've realized this past year in college, is that uncertainty is normal and uncertainty is okay. I feel like sophomore year, at least in my experience, has been a really pivotal year because it's the year when most people are starting to declare their majors and they're starting to take operative classes and really think about what they want to do after grad. And obviously because of that, I feel like there's so much pressure to actually know what you want to do. A really popular topic of conversation when you first meet people is, what's your major? And then, oh, what do you want to do with that major? Like, what are your plans for after college? What do you want to do after graduation? Being asked so constantly kind of makes me feel like I should have an answer. Like I always felt like because people are asking me, I had to figure it out so I would know what to tell them, and I just never did. I think it's really great that some people know what they want to do, and obviously that's not a bad thing at all. If you know what you want to do and you have set these goals and you're working to achieve them, like I think that's really, really great. But I think it's also, like, it kind of puts you in the mindset where you think if you don't know, then you're doing something wrong, or you're not doing something that you should be doing. And I think that's not true at all. Because of how people talk about college, it's supposed to be like 4 years and then you just go in, you pick a major, and then you just take classes, and then you graduate, and then you get the job for that major. It can sound like a really, really streamlined experience or process, when in reality it's not. Because there's so much pressure, it's really, really easy to get caught up in that pressure and to feel like I should know what I'm doing. Why do I not? I need to get my life planned out so I can have an answer. And I think it's okay to not have an answer. And honestly, it took so many people telling me this to realize that it's okay not to know what you want to do. It's like part of the process of college and part of the experience is figuring things out, and there's really no point in rushing that process. When I first got to college, I met a lot of people who were juniors and seniors, and they already knew this is what I want to do, and I just thought I need to figure out what I want to do. So I remember I made so many 4-year plans. I was considering being a common English double actually, so I had my 4-year plan all set out for that. I'm going to take these classes these quarters, and I'm going to join these programs, and I'm going to apply for this fellowship, and I'm going to do all these things to graduate on time, and with this double major, all these things. And this was literally the fall quarter of my freshman year, and I had no idea what was going on with college or what I wanted to do, but I felt like I needed an answer. Even if it wasn't the answer, I felt like I needed an answer to tell people. And honestly, like if you feel like that too, like I feel like it's okay to tell people like you don't know what you want to do. There's no need to put all this pressure on yourself to have everything figured out, especially as a sophomore last year. I still have 2 more years to really explore my options and figure out what I want to do after grad, and I think it's fine for me not to know. I feel like I don't need to pick a career path to have an answer. At least in recent years, like it really has felt to me that people talk about things as it's less about the journey and it's more about the destination. Your destination from high school is college, and then your destination after college is grad school or a job or whatever. And I feel like people don't really talk about the process of getting from college to graduation, and I think that that's something that's also really important to think about. And obviously it's not a straight path. Obviously there's a lot of different things that you probably want to try out, or just experiences that you're gonna have. And part of those experiences is the uncertainty and exploration and the discovery and the figuring things out. So I think that that's honestly probably one of my biggest takeaways from my sophomore year at UCSB, is just realizing that it's okay not to know, and it's normal not to know what you want to do. Just to identify what your interests are, and then picking things to do or joining clubs that can maybe help you develop those interests and figure out if that's what you want to do, instead of just going into it and saying, this is what I want to do and this is how I'm gonna get there. Figuring out maybe these are some things that I want to do, and this is what I could maybe do with that interest. So yeah, that was 10 things that I learned during my sophomore year at UCSB. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll be trying to film a lot more in the next couple of weeks. So if you have any video ideas or suggestions that you'd like to see, please feel free to leave them in the comment section down below. Talk to you guys later. Bye!